Right here I've got 8 small packages, or rather 2 small packages and 6 bubble mailers that should hopefully include all 255 pieces required to make the classic MTT from the LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga game, which, as you may know, was never released as an official LEGO set. So we'll actually be using instructions from Rebrickable by a user I believe named Anakin2001, but he's got tons of great designs. You should really check him out on Rebrickable if you're interested in classic stuff like that. He's also got some of his own designs too, but check him out. A lot of really cool stuff. Obviously I haven't built it yet, but it looked like the instructions are really, you did a really great job with them just as I was scrolling through them a little bit, and it's got a full part list and everything. So yeah, if you're interested in that, definitely check him out. As I pretty typically do when I order on Bricklink, I of course ended up getting a bunch of other pieces for other projects and stuff I have going on, but I made sure to check the price before adding any of my own other stuff, and this came out to about $127 US, which again, for 255 pieces, not the best price per piece ratio. I think that's almost exactly 50 cents per piece, actually, doing the math in my head here. But yeah, clearly not ideal for the price per piece nerds. Obviously, a lot of these pieces are older. There are some not super common pieces that didn't come in a lot of sets and stuff and that they don't produce anymore, so of course a lot of them are harder to come by. It's also worth noting I did not get entirely new pieces. A lot of these are used. I'd say most of them are used. The only ones I went out of the way to make sure they were new is like stuff that's really smooth or fragile or just specific things that I wanted to look really nice. And not, usually with used parts, like, you aren't getting anything too nasty. It's just like some stuff will be scratched up or dented or something. So it's usually in the description too if anything's really bad, so I'm not really too worried about that. Also worth noting is, again, from 8 different sellers, shipping is going to add quite a bit to that too. So assuming like an average of like $5 per package probably, so that adds another 40 onto that, which brings us up to like 165, 170 ballpark. So again, if you're just looking to get a cheap MTT, well, I would say it's not the way to go, but actually the official LEGO ones are pretty expensive if you're up to date on the latest prices on those. 2007 being the best one is probably the most expensive one. Then the other one from 2014, and the not super great design from the very first one from 2000, but like all of those are really expensive, really hard to find. I don't really know how expensive it would be to try to part those out piece per piece, but it's probably in the same ballpark as this, and they do frankly look a little bit better. I just like, because I have the nostalgia from the game, I just had to do this project. I've really wanted to do this for a long time. But if you're looking for like the best looking MTT, that's probably not this, but we'll talk a little more about that later when it's built, which I am going to do right now. So here is the finished MTT. Really nice look there. Just the nostalgia that I'm getting just from seeing this is so cool. I'm really glad that I made this. For size comparison though, I was pretty astounded to see how small it is. Like, for comparison, here's the 2007 MTT. And that is like not even close. It is so small compared to that. I almost think it would fit like inside of just the ball part here. Not quite really, but you get what I mean. It is very small. I was not expecting that. Definitely by far the smallest one in comparison to all 3 that LEGO has officially released so far. So good or bad, it doesn't really matter. I think it's obviously accurate to what we saw in the game, and that's what's important for the sake of this video. So here's the MTT all opened up with all of its flaps and panels. You see these little side panels here that are kind of, I don't think these are even supposed to open up, so to speak. They're kind of just, that's the technique they had to use to make it look that way. Here's the panel in back. Not really a lot of space in the version that I built. So in the instructions, there are basically 3 different instruction versions for this. There's one for, the one that I built includes the Droid Rack and these staps, which you can kind of see tucked in there. Those are the bottoms of them. They're kind of clipped in there. These are the dishes that go on the bottom of those staps. They're kind of just stored here because that's where they go for the sake of fitting in here. So this is the like additional one. Like, none of that is technically in the one in the game. So if you wanted to not build those, you'd kind of have to, the instructions are for this version. There's also like Bricklink studio documents or files for the versions without it. So you kind of have to look on that, and like you can kind of do the math yourself and find the pieces that you don't actually need and take those out or not order them and not build it with those. But I just went all out and built the one with the Droid Rack and everything just to see, and I kind of wish I didn't because it doesn't really work that well. You'll see the staps kind of like are connected up on here. It was super duper hard to get them in there because like it's the last thing you do after you build it. You put them in there, which is really hard. It would be really hard to get them out, which is why I'm not doing it right now. They're kind of just in there for good. The Droid Rack, you'll see there's this little knob on the side here, just like in the official one, or the 2007 one at least. That's the only one I actually own. But you can extend out the Droid Rack, which fits 6 droids on it, which isn't bad considering how ridiculously small this is, but not even close to the other ones. And it was really hard to get them in there, because if you see like the channel or whatever, the tunnel that they're coming out of is only 4 studs wide. And making them fit, I really had to like do a number here. Like you see, I had to kind of stagger them so their heads could be like super tight in. Otherwise, they were not really fitting, not with the back pieces at least, because you can see there's barely any clearance at all. Probably can't see because I can't get my lighting right here, but you see there's barely any clearance there to get these guys in. So if you do this version, notice it will be a real struggle. You have to kind of have everyone here as far as they can on this side and the other pole as far as they can on this side so they can stagger a little bit and actually fit in there. A lot of stuff in here is pretty frail, like these antennas were always breaking off. These guns are super wobbly, like this one's more wobbly than the other one, but it falls off all the time. I had a lot of struggle getting these pieces done because these are sort of fake. It's kind of like just a makeshift version of this piece, which I will be editing onto the screen here so you can see. But that piece doesn't actually exist in brown or reddish brown, so they kind of had to make do. So that's another version, as I was kind of digressed from. The one version of the instructions is for this one. There's a Bricklink Studio file to do it without the Droid Rack or the steps. And there's also a version with like the actual pieces, because there are some pieces here that aren't official, but they have it. So like if they ever do come out with the pieces, you can do it the correct way, so to speak. See, oh, I just touched this and it completely fell off. But so like this piece doesn't exist. You'll see these. It's probably, you can kind of notice like these are in brown, while the rest is reddish brown. Same for this. The front hatch piece is in brown because it just doesn't come in dark reddish brown. Or some pieces like they do, but they're just so much more rare that it's just easier to go with the wrong color than try to spend like $10 on one piece just for the sake of doing it. So they have a version where it actually has all the correct pieces on there, so if they ever do come out or become more widely available, you can do that with ease. It's also worth mentioning these side panels here are really hard to get open. I almost don't want to close it, but like it's not exactly supposed to be a door either. It's kind of just a panel, so you don't really need to open it. It's just there to fill in the space basically in the contouring, because that's what it looks like. But you can see there's nothing to grab really. You're kind of trying to get your fingernail or something on it and push it down. I usually end up like trying to click a brick on the side and use it as somewhat of a handle. Now I pushed this in too far and I'd give up. But yeah, those don't really open very easily, and it's not the thing they're there for anyways, so it's fine. Also in the instructions, like all these orange pieces, the transparent ones are just listed as regular orange, so I had to kind of manually swap those out when I did the parts list to part it out. But like there's, I think 6 of these grates, like 3 on either side, and those were listed as orange instead of transparent. And I didn't swap out the tips of the blaster things here, like those are supposed to be transparent orange, but they're just regular orange, so that's kind of a bummer. Yeah, not really a lot of interior space here, as we kind of looked in there before, but this back panel is about to break off too. Super light, but there's not really a lot of room for minifigures. Like you can throw some stuff in there, but it doesn't really fit. Also, I think here's the rest of the steps too, if you can kind of see, which you definitely cannot kind of see. But yeah, like right here there's a step, and then on the other side is another one, and those are just the poles up front and the dishes in front. So yeah, that takes up a lot of your interior space. And this here is your Droid Rack. So if you did the one without the Droid Rack and the steps, you'd actually have some room back here for minifigures, like in the game. Like at the end of level 1 of the Complete Saga, like when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan go in the back of it, and that cuts to the next cutscene or finishes the level or whatever. So yeah, I would probably recommend doing the one without the Droid Rack and the step. The instructions for this were kind of hard, not hard to follow necessarily, but there were a couple tweaks in it that I think could have either been done better, or it just is what it is and you kind of have to modify it yourself when you actually build it. A lot of things, especially for building like these panels and flaps, in a normal Lego instruction set, like they'd give you like a side build where you're building the door and then you connect it. But for this, they kind of have you build it, like you have the clips and then you add the clips on and then you put the panels on. Especially for these, like it's the clips, then you put on the clips, then you start putting on the panels and just putting more and more stuff on it while you've already clicked the panels on, which makes it kind of hard to do. Like it keeps falling apart on you while you're building it. So I would recommend like building the doors themselves and then connecting them to the hinge instead of following it perfectly step by step. There were a couple edits that he had, like he puts footnotes in the actual instructions on the page for it. So I would definitely follow all those. And the only other thing I think I did different was in the building of these. You see these parts right here on this step. I think I just took out this 1x2, like the 1x2 that's supposed to be under this 1x2 tile. I just took that plate out because it wasn't physically fitting, like there wasn't space for it, or it was like crunching it or just on super wonky or like an angle and it doesn't physically fit. So I took that piece off. You'll also see these black 1x1s here, which this was one of his footnotes too. I don't know why. It's kind of weird when you design something for the bricklink studio thing, because there are some things that like fit together that actually physically don't in real life. So like I think he designed it thinking they would fit here, and then in reality it's not like a cosmetic thing that you even see. It's on the inside, and he was just doing it to fill out space, but it doesn't actually fit there with the stud. So these pieces you can just take off and not order or whatever, or just not use. Aside from those little side tweaks, though, he did a really good job, so props to him. I can't even begin to imagine how much time had to have gone into designing those, or just trying to figure this whole set out in general, just like looking at the video game and trying to make his set happen out of a video game. So it's really cool. Mad respect to him. Definitely check out the stuff on his site there. I'll link that in the comments, or description rather. So yeah, hopefully I'll end up doing a few more of these. I definitely would like to do his version of Dooku's Solar Sailor at some point. And there are a lot of cool vehicles in the Complete Saga or whatever that do not actually exist in LEGO, so hopefully someday I'll try to look into more of those when I have the funds and the time to do it, but for now I'm very happy with this. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about the Complete Saga MTT, so at that, thank you for watching, consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.